Hello, Internet. So I know I'm more than a few weeks late on this, but whatever, leave me alone, I'm lazy. Here are my top 10 movies of 2013. Now, before I get started, I want to say that I thought 2013 was a really solid year for movies. Definitely better than the last few years, in my opinion. Of course, I avoided some stuff that I knew was going to be trash, like The Lone Ranger, for example. But in fact, this year was so good that I gotta throw in a few honorable mentions before I get to my top 10. So, I've got 6 honorable mentions. Let's get to those first. Number 1, Rush. Ron Howard's movie about Formula One racing and the rivalry between Niki Lauda and James Hunt was so overlooked this year. I mean, from the people who did see it, I've heard nothing but good things, but it just seems like not a lot of people did see it. And it's so worth seeing. The acting, especially from Daniel Bruhl, I think is how you say it, so good. And the cinematography, the look of this movie is gorgeous. It's an understated movie, I think, and well worth checking out. Probably Ron Howard's best in a while. Number 2, Side Effects. Steven Soderbergh's movie that came out way toward the beginning of the year. It's kind of like a throwback to the erotic thriller, and it's a lot of fun. There's good twists and turns that you wouldn't necessarily see coming. It's got a solid cast. It's a lot of fun to watch, worth checking out. Evil Dead. Finally, a good horror remake. God, it's not that hard, guys. Of course, this one did have the involvement of Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, so it had that going for it. But still, this was a lot of fun, and while not as good as the original movies, it's a worthy entry in the Evil Dead saga, I guess. I was impressed with it. Don John. A nice twist on the rom-com, which is a genre that I pretty much hate most of the time, and a good directorial debut from Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Check it out. The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug, however you say that name. I was pretty unimpressed with An Unexpected Journey, but this one reminded me of why I fell in love with this world in the first place. I didn't even mind Evangeline Lilly, and I can't stand Evangeline Lilly, so that's saying something. And finally, The To-Do List. A sex comedy from the female point of view for once, and it's not a love story. It's not about finding true love or finding a boyfriend. It's about losing your virginity before you go to college. Because you know what? Girls think about that stuff too, you know. Check it out. Very well done. Alright, now let's hit the actual top 10. Number 10, Prisoners. This reminded me of watching a David Fincher film. Granted, not nearly as good as a David Fincher film, but still, a nice crime drama, a slow-burning crime drama that doesn't needlessly turn into an action flick during the last act. The performances all around, especially by Paul Dano, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Hugh Jackman, are all very, very well done. And I like that it takes the characters that you should have sympathy for, parents of missing, kidnapped children, and it really pushes that sympathy to the breaking point. Number 9, The World's End. I'm a huge fan of Edgar Wright and the Cornetto trilogy, and this was definitely a worthy entry. It's got the same sharp dialogue and flawless direction that I'm used to when it comes to those movies. I like that Simon Pegg and Nick Frost sort of switched roles, with Nick Frost as a straight man and Simon Pegg as the screw-up. I thought they acted the hell out of those parts, especially Nick Frost. Very impressed with them. It would be higher on my list, except the ending. It was too much. It needed to end 5 minutes earlier and it would have been perfect. But as it is, this number 9 on the list, and Hot Fuzz reigns supreme. Number 8, The Heat. Oh my god, yes, yes to female buddy cop movies. Please, let us have more of those, because this was actually funny. And Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock had awesome chemistry, and it was just such a fun movie, and more please, more. Number 7, 12 Years a Slave. Chiwetel Ejiofor, I am pulling for him come Oscar time. He deserves it. I really don't think he's gonna win, but God, I want to be wrong. He was so good in this. And Steve McQueen's direction was gorgeous. This movie really showed you, or really showed the horrors of what slavery was like, and it didn't sensationalize it. It's the anti-Django is what it is, but it needs to be seen. Number 6, Pacific Rim. This movie, I will say, had to grow on me a little bit. I think, based on the hype, I was expecting more. But the more I watch it, the more I enjoy it. I still think that Charlie Hunnam, however you say his name, is the weakest link, who played the lead, who played Raleigh, guy from Sons of Anarchy. I thought he did an awful job. But everyone else around him elevates it. You know, you got Idris Elba, Charlie Day, Bern Gorman, Ron Perlman, everyone else that I'm forgetting. They did an awesome job, and the plot, you know, is kind of a been there, done that thing, but the characters and the visuals are stunning, and the direction all make it worthwhile. Guillermo del Toro, I'm a huge fan of his, so well done. Number 5, Fruitvale Station. This movie was completely shut out of the Oscars, and it's a tragedy. Ryan Coogler, the director, Michael B. Jordan, and Octavia Spencer all deserved nominations. This movie, honestly, was so powerful, I don't think I could stand watching it again. It was that moving. It got to me that much. But it needs to be seen at least once. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. And it came out during a time when, I mean, it's always relevant, but when it was especially relevant during the Trayvon Martin trial. And it's just, God, you need to see this movie. Number 4, Frozen. Disney seems to be back on their A-game when it comes to the animation department, at least. Like, Tangled was a step in the right direction. I wasn't as big a fan of it as others were, but Frozen, they hit every mark just right. It's gorgeous to look at. The songs are a lot of fun. The characters and the plot is really where it shines, though. It is a Disney movie, and it is about true love, but it's about the true love between family, between two sisters, and how often do you see that? Oh God, it was so refreshing to see. Check it out. Number 3, Iron Man 3. It's my favorite of the Iron Mans, I'll say it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and credit to Shane Black for the writing and directing and teaming up with Robert Downey Jr. again. It was a lot of fun to see with the dialogue. And this was my favorite look at Tony Stark as a character, probably since the first Iron Man movie. I like that it had events carry over from the Avengers. If I had one complaint about it, it's that it needed more Don Cheadle. Number 2, Gravity. I don't know if this is going to be as good watching it at home as it was watching it on the big screen, because so much of it is spectacle. It's beautifully done visually. There's so much eye candy coming at you. You're like, oh my God. Like, it really gives you a sense of space, really. Like, from the sound, or the lack of sound, I guess, and the direction. Like, the first shot is something like 13 minutes long. It never cuts. It just keeps flowing around, because, you know, that's what the characters are doing, and it's so well done. But unlike another movie that was nominated a few years ago based on spectacle, Avatar, this has more going for it. The plot, not especially unique, but well executed, very suspenseful. The performance, Sandra Bullock carries the movie, and she does it very well. She's most of her time in this movie is spent alone, and this is probably the most impressed I've been with her as a performer, and the nomination is well deserved. It's a shame she won't win, but the nomination, I'm glad she got that. It's a great movie. And my number 1 movie of 2013 is The Conjuring. There is nothing I love more than a good haunted house movie, and James Wan, I don't think he's capable of making a bad movie. Insidious 2 was not bad, but it's as close as he got to a bad movie. The Conjuring, though, God, it was so good, and you throw in a great cast. Vera Farmiga, Patrick Wilson, Lily Taylor, Ron Livingston. You said it in the 70s with a kick-ass soundtrack, and there was no chance I wasn't going to love it. It understands, James Wan understands that you need atmosphere and mood to make something scary, and not just a bunch of jump scares, and just, James Wan, will you marry me, please? So there you have it. The top 10 plus a few extra movies of 2013, in my humble opinion.